All right, my clock shows 1 o'clock Eastern here, so uh, we'll get a quick start on our advanced nuclear materials area, our topic area 7. I'd like to welcome everybody. This session is being recorded, so you'll see here at the top as you come in that the privacy policy is there, and if you do not consent to being recorded, please do drop off this Teams call, and you can ask your questions by email. This is our way of cataloging questions and making sure that we are able to share this information with the general public or those who may be teaching classes or other things during this time period. So we'd like to welcome you all and especially thank our program managers who are here to taking the time to sit down with us and answer any questions that you might have. This is a new effort that we're terming office hours for our FY 2023 CINR call. Now that we have the funding opportunity out, we have final scopes published. We wanted to give an additional opportunity after the webinar to be able to have a back and forth with program management to give you all an opportunity to do that. The intention of the session is there's really 3 objectives here. The first is to help all of you better understand ongoing programmatic activities. So please direct questions to our program contacts here about what's going on at the DOE laboratories or the rest of the complex, to receive clarifications about the scopes that have been published and whether or not certain concepts fit within the NE mission. And finally, this is an additional opportunity. We'll continue doing these types of things, but to increase communication between the universities and the DOE programs over the course of time. So this is one of many efforts in that regard. So to the extent possible, we'd ask you to keep your comments and questions focused on those objectives. As a reminder, this year the scopes are much broader than they typically are for those who have participated in this process before. That's intentional, and the review plan focuses on relevancy to any mission rather than necessarily a focus on program priority like it has in the past. So from that perspective, we'd like you to focus your questions on better understanding the NE mission, understanding where specific concepts or ideas might fit within any mission in these subtopical areas. For that reason, there is an other category in each of these topical areas, including this advanced nuclear materials area. There isn't a federal program contact for that scope. That's intentional. What we would ask you to do is if you have questions regarding things that don't necessarily fit into the subtopical areas, that you submit those questions to neup@inl.gov, and we will find the program manager that will be best suited to answer that question for you, since we're assuming that some of those other topics may be quite diverse. From a logistical standpoint, as we start this meeting, the questions will be taken by using the raise your hand function in Teams. If you're unfamiliar with how to use that, you go up to the reactions area on the top, click on that, and then you should see a little hand that can be raised. We'll take those in order by the hands that are raised. I would like to ask everyone that we do have an hour session here. I'd like to ask everyone just to be thoughtful with the time you take for asking questions, and make sure that we can cycle through questions so that everybody has an opportunity to ask the questions they'd like. From that standpoint, we'd like if you'd like to ask a question and a follow-up question, that's completely appropriate. But if you ask more than several questions, please drop back down to the bottom of the list, raise your hand again, and ask another set of questions at a later point. So with that, I want to make a quick introduction of our federal program managers who have joined us. There are several other individuals who I will not mention at this moment, including some national technical directors from the laboratories who can address some of the questions, who are in a support function role. for our federal program managers. So for Nuclear Materials 1, this is LWR Core and Structural Materials. Our point of contact is Sue Lessica. And welcome, Sue. Thank you for being here. She is also the point of contact for the second subtopic area, which is Advanced Reactor Core and Structural Materials. So there's LWR and then there's Advanced Reactor for those two areas. Next, we have Dirk Cairns-Gallimore, who's here on the on video. Thanks for being here, Dirk. He leads the Advanced Manufacturing Technologies scope area in the Advanced Manufacturing Technologies program at DOE. And we also have Kimberly Gray, who is here to lead out the area for materials involved in fuel recycling applications. So also materials area, just different than more of the structural materials or advanced manufacturing type things that we have here. So welcome, Kimberly. And like I said, the other area doesn't have a designated point of contact, but all of these folks that we have on the call know the programs here and can help us kind of direct you in the right direction. So with that introduction, what we'll do now is open this up for questions. This is just an open question and answer format. So please do raise your hand. If we do have phone callers, which I don't see any right now, but we may have some phone callers here during the session, I will call you out specifically and see if you have any questions if you're on the phone. So I know you can't raise your hand, so we'll take care of it that way. So with that, we will open with our first question. Cliff Lissenden, go ahead.
Let me unmute here and turn on the camera. I didn't realize I was going to be first there, but that being the case, if we look at the topic area 7, part of it says advanced materials, manufacturing techniques, qualifications, and or testing of existing materials. So for NM3, advanced manufacturing technologies, so this is Dirk's area, I guess. My question is, in that scope, is there an interest in additive manufacturing of metals and specifically process monitoring of that to enhance capabilities for qualification of materials?
Yes. I mean, as broad as this area is, absolutely. Those are going to be critical to qualification and also consistency in making the material over time.
Okay, great.
All right, Cliff, any follow-up questions from you?
No, just trying to figure out how to put my hand down.
Yeah, you can do it the same way you put it up. So just go ahead.
Go.
Yep, there you go. Excellent. All right, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
All right, Nate Mara, you're next. Go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Yeah, so as a follow-on to that, within the Advanced Manufacturing Technologies NM3 category, of course, the fabrication is a big part of it, and the processing is the focus. Is there also room for properties type of measurement in there, or do you really want to focus just on the processing itself? Is there any emphasis on moving towards property or characterization measurement in that particular category?
I would say yes, because I think one of the things that we looked at advanced manufacturing is the ability to determine what the properties are of your constructed component, subcomponent, or system. So the more that those are integrated with the fabrication processing and how we can leverage those is going to be important to the future. So yes.
Okay, so closing that loop then between the manufacturing process and the resulting properties then is something that you would have in that category.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go next to Kazro Momeni. Go ahead.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I don't use to Teams much. So a follow-up question on that. So is the focus would be on more like basic research or like more toward the applied? So what would be the TRL level for the funding opportunity? And also, is there any like particular interest in using of any of the DOE libraries or softwares or codes that's been already developed and kind of like capitalizing on those like Moose? And that's my question. Thank you.
So in this area, I think what we'd like to see released is that it's okay to be doing basic research, but we also want you to be considering what the end application is going to be, where it's going to fit in, so that you're communicating with a potential end user and getting feedback to that system as you go through your R&D efforts. And it can be in a small way, but that's important to make sure that you're understanding manufacturing needs or capabilities when you go to an industrial application in the end, just so you're for awareness. I think using the DOE codes and standards and stuff, all that is great. If it benefits your effort, go for it. I don't think there's any special consideration if you leverage those efforts. It's just what you need to be successful in your application.
Thank you.
Right. Any other follow-up questions, Kazra? Are you good to go?
I'm good to go for
Excellent.
now. Thank you.
Except for now. Yeah, that sounds great. So let's move on to our next question then from Lingfeng He.
Oh, yeah. Could you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go
So
ahead.
yeah, I have a question about NM-2 and regarding the creep fatigue experiments for structural material. I think as a program in terms of I think there are a lot of extensively experiments have been performed, like for some structural material, for example, alloy 617, and supported by DOE program. I think this call is not for like further like more like creep fatigue experiment. So my question is, if we propose some mechanical testing, creep fatigue, can we just maybe just do fairly limited amount of mechanical testing and focus more on characterization and also modeling to tell the mechanism, correct? I think this could be the purpose of this call. And but if we need some material it's already been tested like by the program, can we access this material from the program like for free? And because we just need some material be already tested, but in specific environments at higher temperature, can we use that material? So this is question one. So the second question is because the purpose for high temperature creep fatigue test could be for like a high temperature or ultra high temperature, like gas reactors, correct? But do you think if we propose something related with molten salt environments, the temperature is lower, do you think this will be also interesting for this based on this call? That's my two questions. That's all. Thank you.
So I'll start with the second one because it's easier. We purposely didn't identify which reactor environment. So it is open to any of the reactor environments. Creep fatigue is an issue with across the board. So having a better understanding of what's going on, whether it be an MSR or the high temperature reactor, still is necessary. For your first question on the materials, we do have the NSUF materials library that has a lot of materials that have been tested in the past. Are you familiar with that?
I think the Nsuf library is more related with irradiation, like irradiated material, right? So I've been like working with Nsuf library for many years, but I know a lot of material is neutron irradiated. But I think for this call, I don't think necessarily we need to focus on radiation effects, correct?
Yeah, so but I think that the library has expanded quite a bit. So
Okay.
there is unirradiated materials in there as well. So I would recommend you take a look there and see if what you need is in there.
Okay. Okay, I will take a look at the library. Yeah, but I'm not sure. Maybe like Sam can address this comment. Maybe there are a lot of material maybe belong to the program. Maybe it's not even included in the library. Yeah.
So, may I chime in?
Please.
The challenge that confronts us is that given a structural materials that looks to be very promising under some of those environmental conditions, like for fast reactors, for gas-cooled reactors, or molten salt reactors, that we can only determine whether or not that it has sufficient crit fatigue resistance by actually doing a lot of testing. So the scope of this call is that we'd like to have you guys who come up with great ideas to allow us to have some understanding of the mechanisms whereby that we don't have to do a lot of testing, or even that as a screening criteria, so that we can sort of screen out some of that are not as promising. So we don't need to just go brute force to spend a lot of money to do crit fatigue testing, and then we find that it's not too good. So therefore that we can, if we can, with your help, to come up with this type of understanding, it will really help us to sort of really enlarge this structural materials pipeline that will allow us to sort of bring in more materials for considerations. So in terms of material supply, we are not looking at any specific materials. Obviously, that's the mechanisms for sort of a stainless steel versus nickel alloys. They might be different, or versus ferritic martensitic steel. But we can sort of look at classes of materials. In the base program, we do have sort of a crit fatigue testing done on some structural materials like alloy 617, alloy 709. Whereby that we might be able to provide with researchers some of those tested materials where so they have been subjected to either creep or crit fatigue sort of history that you might be able to sort of look at do characterization and figure out what is going on. Or also that we can provide some sort of us receive the materials like alloy 709 for you to do testing.
I see. So do you have a point of contact, or will be you to contact if we need to access this kind of material?
Probably that I can serve as a point of contact. We have test programs at at different national labs, so I can coordinate to find out whether or not some of those tested samples can be shared with universities, and whether they are the right conditions or usable to you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I think I don't expect we do more extensive like mechanical testing, and I think if we choosing some of the specific condition, we do maybe limited test to develop microstructure and also modeling. I think this is also meaningful, correct? For this
yeah, the idea is not to do a lot of testing, so that at least that we have some screening criteria to look at the material selections, and also that for future material developments for material scientists to develop materials. Right now, that most of the sort of the material design that they optimize just for the creep resistance, and we sort of find out what's going on for creep fatigue after the fact when they have the materials. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think yeah. I think in the webinar, maybe I think Sam or maybe someone also address, can like, for example, environment effects will be important or not. But you mentioned maybe if we can do everything in one shot, maybe it's good, but I think it could be too complicated, correct? So, but I think there's some value if we include environment effects. For example, molten salt reactor. If we add a corrosion and make creep fatigue together, do you think this is something could be very interesting? I think I know it's very complicated, but
I would say more bang for the buck. We love it. No matter you do with the same amount of funding.
Okay. That's all. I think you have addressed my question and comment. Thank you, Sam, and so yeah.
All right, thank you, Lingfeng. Let's go to our next question. Sid Pathak, go ahead.
Thanks, Stu. Thanks for this webinar. I had a question about the same call, the NM2. So the FOA actually mentions damage mechanisms for creep fatigue. So are you also looking for only fatigue only or creep only damage mechanisms, or does it have to be creep fatigue?
Our focus here is, we wanted to keep things complicated for you and challenging because we don't want it to make it too easy. So our focus is on creep fatigue. Okay. Do you want to add anything else, Sam?
Yes, I think that the creep fatigue interaction is it occurs at a larger structural scale, length scale. So therefore, that some sort of concepts in the 70s talk about a surface crack initiated from the surface of a components and then cavitations on the grain boundary interior, how the two sort of get together to interact. There's some models like that. So obviously that to understand creep fatigue interaction, the understanding of the separate effects like creep by itself and fatigue will be quite helpful. And now, of course, that there have been a lot of work done on sort of the fatigue mechanisms, creep damage mechanisms in the literature. So obviously that if you sort of have any additional ideas for both of them. So I think that, yes, the creep fatigue is the end goal, but to get to creep fatigue through creep and fatigue will be part of the picture.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, we'll continue taking questions. We don't have any phone callers, so we'll continue taking questions by folks raising their hands. Bai, I did see that you had your hand raised. Don't know if that was intentional or an accident. But I see that it's not raised now.
Yeah, this is Bai from University of Nebraska, Lincoln. Yeah, thank you a lot for the let me ask question. My question was actually the same for the NM3 for the whether its creep is only can be considered. My next question, I'm also interested here if whether the NM2 program is interested in some kind of combination of the modeling and experiments to understand the mechanism, such as some simulation tools to help for the prediction of creep fatigue behavior.
Yeah, as Sam mentioned, we would expect modeling to be a big portion of the proposal, since we're looking to try to understand what the mechanisms are. So, Sam, do you want to add anything more to that?
Yeah, if you need modeling, looking at some of the atomistic simulation to understand how dislocation interact with some of the cavitations, by all means, the goal is to sort of have understanding of the creep fatigue. That can be via characterization, via sort of some of those simulations. We would like to know the end result. You guys are the experts to figure out what you do, whether you do characterization, what type of characterizations, and as well as what type of modeling effort. So I think that we're looking for help.
Okay. Yeah, thank you a lot, Dr. Sam and Dr. Laskai. I think you answered my question. I think about the research plan here. Thank you a lot.
All right, thank you, Bai. We'll continue to take questions here. If we do start to taper off and don't have continued questions, I see that we have quite a few raised hands here, which is great. As we start to slow down, we'll finish off the session after taking a final call for questions. So just be aware, we'll continue on either till the end of the hour until we finish off all of our questions and everybody's had a chance. So Luis Ibarra, I see that you have your hand up next. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Luis Ibarra from the University of Utah. My question is about NM1. Is reinforced concrete degradation of interest for this call?
For NM1 in particular, no, the focus is more on structural materials. If you have interest in concrete and have something you'd like to look at that still meets our mission, the other category is certainly available if you'd like to propose in the concrete area.
So that category will be what, NM5, the one for?
Let's see. Yes, NM5.
NM5. Okay, but obviously has to be focused on one of the different areas that you propose, like, for example, degradation or kind of a composite material?
No, for the other category, it could be any type of materials research that supports the Office of Nuclear Energy's mission. So within our light water reactor sustainability program, we do have concrete research going on. So that concrete research is within our mission. I would say if you propose under NM5 in particular, you want to make sure that you spend some time talking about how your research supports our mission to make sure that that connection is made.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll go next to Luis. Do you have any other follow-up questions? Just want to make sure to capture those before we move on.
It's fine, thank you.
Okay, excellent. We'll move on next to Xiaolei Gao. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Yeah, so I think my question is specifically to NM4, probably for Kimberly. So I noticed that the FOA suggests that the focus is primarily on off-gas capturing, right? And probably also the performance of, the development of new waste forms, right? And my question is about whether there's any interest in focusing on the performance of existing candidate nuclear waste form in some critical environments.
Kimberly, you may be muted still.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
For the NM4 area, we are interested in the sorbent materials for the off-gas capture and for advanced waste forms. And if it's not in those two areas, it could be in the other category and in the catch-all category.
Okay, so just want to make sure that I understand it. So is it, did you suggest that if it's about the performance of other existing materials rather than developing new waste forms, so it should be submitted to some other categories such as maybe NM5?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for the confirmation. That's all my question.
Okay. Thank you for the question.
Yep. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll go next to Stephen Talder. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm asking on behalf of a collaborator who couldn't attend this meeting. In the CINR work scope Q&A, oxide dispersion strengthened materials were brought up in the work scope of FL3. Is there also interest in addressing their microstructure preservation under the conditions of welding or advanced manufacturing under the NM3 work scope?
You're muted, Dirk.
I think you're muted, Dirk.
Yes, actually, it is. Preservation of properties during welding and of advanced manufacturing materials is of interest in that area as well. That's another important area that has to be resolved.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll go next to Fateme. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question on NM4 materials for fuel recycling applications. So I think that's a question for Kimberly. For the new solvents that we plan to develop for off-gas capture, are we also supposed to propose the consolidation of these these new solvents into advanced waste materials, or just the focus should be given on primarily on the development of the solvents and their testing rather than consolidation part?
It could be either or, not necessarily both. You can concentrate on just the sorbent, the development of the sorbents, or you can actually also mention the consolidation techniques and processes.
All right, thank you.
Bob Jubin, do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah. I think that if you're working on the sorbent end, it's always useful to think about what you're going to do with the material you've captured and what its final disposition would be. Do you need to recover it from the sorbent? Is that sorbent going to be incorporated into something, or does it become the waste form itself? Anything that you can say along those lines or propose along those lines, I think helps on the development of the sorbent material itself.
Well, sounds great. Thank you very much for your responses.
Kimberly, may I weigh in here a little bit? But it's really important you convince us this is important for the sorbent material, or you let us know why you would need to separate this as two steps. It will be desirable to have one step. You can use one material, say, for both purposes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Stephen, Bob, and Kimberly. Will and any other follow-up questions, Fatemi, before we move on? All right, thank you. Kezra Momeni, go ahead.
Hello again. I had just a quick question regarding this additive manufacturing. So if we want to propose something aligned with additive manufacturing of structural materials, shall we go for like the NM2 or NM3? So which one's going to be better fit the scope of these type of projects?
I think if you're looking at the manufacturing standpoint, it's probably NM3. If you're using it as a model for prediction, I'm not going to speak for Sue, but this would be my interpretation. I'll let her fill it in. But if you're going to use that as the model for determining mechanistic properties, and especially in the creep fatigue area, it would probably fit more under NM2. Sue?
Yeah, NM2 is really focused on understanding creep fatigue, so there isn't a specifically looking at fabrication, mainly just looking at the mechanisms of creep fatigue. Of course, how it's fabricated has an effect on the mechanical behaviors of the materials. But if your focus is really just on fabrication, then it would not be within the scope of NM2.
So if it would be like using additive manufacturing to like overcome certain structural limitations of the current materials, would it be so more NM3 then?
Yes.
Not specifically on fatigue or creep. So
yes, that would be NM3.
Okay, thank you.
And this does raise an important point that I wanted to point out about the process. As we, the intention here is to, where the focus of the project is to put it into that subtopical area. If for some reason a program manager would feel that it fits better into a different area, program managers do make recommendations about potentially switching a topic area if they feel like it's more appropriate there. So please understand, there is that type of a check that's made if it feels like it's really more appropriate for a different area. With the lead PI's permission, that type of a change can be made at the recommendation of a program manager. So I wouldn't, from that perspective, these questions sometimes are hard to answer until we actually see the application, and then that type of a recommendation can be made. So point being, don't stress out too badly about splitting hairs in that regard. Submit it to what you think would be best, and if there's a conversation to be had there about where it may fit best, we'll reach back out to you.
Great, thank you.
All right, let's go to our next question, which is from Nadia. Go ahead.
Thanks, Drew. This is Nadia Kuraitem from Utah State University. I have a couple questions on two different work scopes. I'll probably start with NM3 since Dirk is on the line now. And my question is there more interest in materials development or more of a characterization of the process structure property relationships, or any of those links using advanced manufacturing?
In this area, it's all of the above. We know that there's capabilities out there that we're trying to learn more about when it comes to advanced manufacturing. And of course, there's the relationship between the processing your materials and all that, and then correlating those as we go to qualification. So it's actually both of them that we're interested in.
Okay, perfect. And then my other question is for NM2, and my question is there any interest in the environmental effects under irradiation, or is it only at high temperatures using creep fatigue evaluation and identifying the behavior?
As Sam mentioned, we're always looking for more bang for the buck. So if you want to add one more issue of corrosion, go right ahead. That's perfectly fine. Of course, it does have an effect, but creep fatigue, it was our focus. But if you want to add one more variable, you're very welcome to do that.
All right. If I may add another question to NM1.
Okay.
So is there a specific material of interest in that scope yet?
No, not a specific one, but we do want it to focus on the materials that are typically used in LWR. As I'm sure you well know, there are several different types across the reactors, the different reactor types. So any of the ones that are used within the LWR core and structural areas meets the scope. I don't know if Tom or Frank are on, if they want to add anything.
So this is Frank. Can I chime in?
Please.
Yes, so I agree with what you said. So in the light water reactors domain, including pressurized water reactor and boiling water reactor, those materials that's been interested for environmental assisted fatigue, historically, mostly including low alloy steels, stainless steels, as well as the weldment between the two. There are few studies also focused on nickel alloys, but nickel alloys was more resistant to the environmental assisted fatigue than the other alloy combinations that I have just mentioned. We didn't want to pin down to any particular materials, just to want to give the university community a lot more freedom to pick the ones that you're thinking are making most of the sense in this area.
All right. Yep. Thank you very much.
Right. Luis, I still see your hand is up. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not. If you have an additional question.
Just a mistake, sorry.
Oh, no problem. All right, we'll we have about 20 minutes left here. We'll continue taking questions. Please do raise your hand if you have one. Xing Wang, go ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So here's Xing from Penn State. I do have actually a follow-up question on AM2. So I think our question is that does radiation damage is a factor when we consider the chronic fatigue behaviors? So we know those high temperature alloys will be used, although they are relatively far away from the reactor core, but there may be some radiation damage there. So should we consider this effect when we study the chronic fatigue phenomena, or we want to maybe focus more on the purely the pure mechanical effects here? So that's my question. Thank you.
My initial reaction would be if you want to add that factor in, I think I'd be okay with it. Sam, do you have any thoughts?
Yes. So I think that is a very good question. Obviously, that in the actual operating reactors, the structural components will see sort of temperature, stress, some irradiation dose depending on the components, and corrosion effects. So all of this will influence this structural failure mode in terms of crypt fatigue. And now, obviously, that the way that we think about that is that we sort of do it step by step to establish of the basic mechanisms under temperature and stress in terms of crypt fatigue, and then to ask what will be the additional effect, how would the crypt fatigue cyclic life be reduced further if you have neutron irradiation and you have sort of corrosion due to coolant. So corrosion is that if there's a general corrosion whereby that you just lose materials, those are sort of easy to sort of take care of. Sort of the concern is that if there are sort of mass transfer effects that will reduce or change your material, whereby that, for example, that some of the chrome might be sort of sucked into the molten salt coolant. So therefore, that those are the additional effect on the sort of the basic fatigue damage under stress and temperature. So if you can sort of add the irradiation on top of the temperature and stress, that would be great. But I don't see how you can just do irradiation without sort of understanding the basic of stress and temperature.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, we'll loop back to Fatemi. Go ahead.
Hi, just a follow-up question. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Fatima Rizai from Missouri University of Science and Technology. I think this is a general question on collaboration. I was just wondering if collaborations with national labs would be necessary, or teams can just propose to have collaborators either within the institution or with other universities.
Yeah, I can take it from a general question standpoint. I can take a moment, and then Sue, Dirk, others can add to. But there's no requirement to have a national laboratory collaborator, an industry collaborator, in any of the scope for CINR. So, the guidance here is to put together the best team for the work that you're proposing. That may include components like national laboratory or industry partners. It may not. And so from that standpoint, team makeup is up to the investigators. Sue, Dirk, others, don't know if you have any additions for your specific areas. Or Kimberly, sorry.
I agree with Drew. There's some topics that are really super well suited for universities, and having a team of university people makes sense. There's other ones that would greatly be helped with having some of the national lab capabilities. Some of their capabilities are unique, and so they could potentially add to your proposal, but it really varies by the scope. And as Drew said, there is no requirement. So pick the best team to make you the most successful.
Sure, thank you.
Nadia, I see you have your hand back up. Go ahead.
Yes, so I wanted to ask a follow-up question to Shane's question about the irradiation effects. Or damage from irradiation. And it's more so knowing that I looked through the NSUF library of materials and I couldn't identify geometries that would work for specific experiments. So in general, for the NM work scope, how would it work if we would like to get access for NSUF facilities, but this year they seem to be so either CINR, R&D, or NSUF access only. They're not coupled. So is there a recommendation on how we could, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a step at this one from a functional standpoint. The intention for decoupling those is to allow a project to be awarded, for example, in this FY 2023 cycle, and then in subsequent cycles to apply for specific NSUF access from an NSUF access only standpoint. So that would be the intention. Not understanding specifics, that is something that I would encourage you to reach out to the NSUF office if you have curiosities about how those process work, how their process steps work, and how they, what's available in the library and other things like that from a specific standpoint. But from a general standpoint, they're decoupled to allow any awarded project to make an NSUF access only application in subsequent years while the project is ongoing.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, we have about 10 minutes or so here. While we're waiting for additional questions, do want to put out a few reminders. Anna, if you could help me share the FOA calls and the resources that are available on the nup.gov website. She'll share those in chat. Those will include the resources, the recording and the resources that we have put up today. That includes webinar recordings, webinar presentations, specific question and answer discussions that have happened both here and from the webinar back about 6 weeks ago. And also has a general question and answer if you have any questions about how the process and the application and review process run. And has also put a reminder if you have additional questions to direct those to NEUP@inl.gov. We'll coordinate here with program managers and with national technical directors to get you detailed answers to your questions by email after this session concludes. And so those are our reminders. We do want to encourage everybody, if you are going to submit email questions, to do so as soon as possible. That way we can get you a timely response that will give you enough time to incorporate any feedback that you might need into your pre-application. I don't see any additional hands up or additional questions here, so I will at this point say, final call for questions. If you do have an additional question, please do raise your hand. We'll sit here in semi-awkward silence for a minute or two just to make sure that we give all of you enough time to respond to the last call. Bai, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Hi, I have a question about NM3 to Dirk. And so the question here would be like, are you interested in the coating technology for the colliding tube to improve the performance for the fast reactors?
Yes, we would be interested in that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any follow-up questions, Bai?
So yeah, I appreciate the confirmation of this interest, and so I was wondering, so for this kind of performance testing, does the program expect like a very high radiation dose or some extreme environments testing and for the fast reactor environments?
I think you might eventually get there. We have to get proof of concept and materials properties and evaluations done first.
Okay, I understand your points. Yeah, thank you for answering my question. And nice to meet here.
Yeah, corrosion as well. So I think that there's a lot of steps in there that we need to get to before we can say, yeah, something's effectively, we're going to irradiate it, because I think that there's a challenge there.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I think I understand. I think irradiation, corrosion, mechanical, we'll consider all of this for the proof of concept. Thank you a lot.
All right, thank you, Bai. Looks like we don't have any additional questions here. So at this point, just as a reminder, for those who are submitting NSUF letters of intent, those are due today. Our pre-application due date, once again, is October 11th, coming up here in a few weeks. And you have the resources here in chat. So please do let us know if you have any additional questions through email. I'd like to thank Sue, Dirk, Kimberly, and the supporting cast of our national technical directors who have been so gracious to get together and to answer all of our questions here. We do encourage you as we go forward to give the NUP office here feedback on how this meeting went and any additional suggestions you'd like from an engagement standpoint, so we can continue engaging the programs, connecting the programs with the university community. So any feedback is welcome in that regard. So once again, thank you, program managers, and we will conclude this call. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
Thank you.